Hello!
Hello, la, la, la.
This is the Second Button Podcast. We're doing Season 2, Episode 9, The Deal.
The Deal. Yeah.
The Deal. Originally aired May 2nd of 1991. I'm Andrew, and with me is...
Brian. We're your Seinfeld watch-along, comment-along podcast. So, episode, by episode, we're going to go over Seinfeld, and I don't know. I always like watching these, and I'm taking all my notes. I'm like, all right, it always has something to comment on.
Yeah, exactly.
The peanut gallery is maybe what we are. We're still figuring out what we're calling ourselves, but
the Seinfeld peanut gallery sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The pretzel gallery, they're making you thirsty.
Well, I remember the last episode we mentioned that it seemed like they cut out all the comedy bits at the commercial breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And this one threw them all back in.
It has one in the beginning and one at the end. We'll get to it, but this one ends. I thought it was like, there's no comedy bit at the end. It goes to black, and then there is one. Yeah. But anyways.
But this was supposed to be the season finale.
Oh, really?
And okay. Larry David thought it was going to be canceled. He thought that was it. So the way the episode ends makes sense, which we'll get to. But it makes sense to be like, okay, we don't got to go anywhere with this, so we can end it like this, and we don't got to worry about cleaning it up afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But then when NBC aired it, they put it 9th out of 12. So this episode happened, and there's 3 more episodes that didn't touch back on the cliffhanger at the end of the episode. Not cliffhanger, but the way they ended it.
Yeah, okay. Because I was watching on Netflix, and it autoplayed the next one. I'm like, okay, this doesn't go along with the ending.
Yeah, it doesn't
which we'll
up.
get to. Anyway.
So I remember I was saying how before the DVDs don't line up with Netflix and with IMDb. So IMDb and Netflix runs like the syndicated list of how it aired on TV. Mm-hmm. The DVDs are organized the way Jerry and Larry intended for the episodes to be put out, the way they recorded them. And then NBC just did their own thing because they used to do that. They take episodes that look like they might do better and put it on a quieter night. And then or a crappy episode they'll put against something crappier. But if there's a big sports ball game on, they'd put a better episode on to try to steal some of the audience away. So
that's super interesting.
Yeah, so they ruin the timeline for ratings.
But because in this episode it's to do with Jerry and Elaine. Mm-hmm. A lot of Elaine.
And probably
I can have a little bit of Jerry if I can have a lot of Elaine.
We'll get to this right at the beginning, but it's probably the longest monologue of the whole series, and just 2 of them sitting on a couch talking. Nothing else going on. No one walking in on them. It was just 2 of them sitting on the couch. Conversation. It's probably it's pretty long. It's probably 5 minutes or so of them just talking.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gold. It was perfect. So
yeah, but we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. So I guess the episode starts off with a stand-up bit, like we said. But it starts off with a women be like, men be like joke setup that Jerry's doing.
The 90s comedy.
Women trying on clothes about how they don't put it on. They kind of put it up against themselves, and they're behind the clothes. They're like, oh, okay. And they stand at a 45-degree angle, stick their leg out. I'm like, oh, yeah, I think this will work out.
Yeah.
And they say, guys don't do that. They don't take a suit off the rack and put shoes on the bottom and be like, hey, I guess this works out pretty good. Can you move the shoes along with me if I'm running?
Move the shoes.
Yeah. It's kind of more just like a physical bit. And I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I guess I don't have much commentary on that. I'm like, I usually just try clothes on because I got to see if they fit, because there's always different cuts and stuff like that.
I just buy medium T-shirts. I get home. I'm too fat. It doesn't fit right. Yeah, whatever.
put it in the closet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, because some larges, I'm like, does it go through the fucking shrink ray or something? If you put some mediums are like a fucking tent, and then some larges are so small. I'm like, well, so I got to try it on.
I bought a medium shirt from Idiot Box Effects. It was a Star Wars based no moon one. It has like the Death Star opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wore it once. I washed it. I took it with me on vacation. I put it on vacation. I was like, it was like so tight. You could see like every hair on my chest through the shirt. So tight. Like, well, I guess that's gonna. I don't know what I'm gonna do with
it. This thing's painted on.
Yeah, I'll stretch it over a canvas and put it on the wall or something now.
Yeah. But anyways, after that, the episode actually opens up with Elaine and Jerry in his apartment watching television. So it's like what Andrew said earlier. This is just them talking. So they're kind of going back and forth. It starts off there at the premise of watching TV. So Elaine is flipping through channels pretty quickly, so she's not picking anything. And I remember the Seinfeld joke that is about this premise about like men hunting and women nesting, as opposed to the channel switching. I'm like, it's very opposite to this premise of Elaine not staying on a channel. It's like, what about that? You're not even watching it. Da da da.
Yeah.
And actually, the next episode, so episode 10, starts off with that bit. And I'm like, oh, so they couldn't have put that joke, even though it kind of starts off, because it is contradictory to his premise of his bit. It's just something that I noticed. I'm like, It was another, boy, I hope somebody got fired for that blunder moment. Well, actually, in his joke in the next episode.
I can't believe the show didn't get canceled.
Yeah. And just another sign of the times, TV and not knowing what's on. You're just channel surfing and checking the next one. And I'm like, oh, yeah, totally don't do that anymore.
You'd spend 28 minutes trying to find something to watch. And then you'd find the sitcom you want to watch. Like, okay. And you see the last gag, and then it's over. It's just.
And then even too, it's I remember when digital cable came out. So went from having just regular cable to that, and it's a box, and I'm like, oh my god, there's a menu on the TV. You can scroll and see what's on the other channels before you click to that channel.
And set reminders and everything.
Yeah, and to me, I'm like, as a kid, I remember it was like a game changer. I'm like, oh my god, this is the future. And you have a menu. Oh my god, a menu. And then when On Demand came out, I'm like, Jesus, this is what it's like. This is what they were talking about in Star Trek. I've never seen that show.
The DVR was the best. You record two things at once.
Yeah, DVR. And I definitely got that like after high school when I finally I was like, what? This is a thing? This is insane. Oh my god. And then nowadays, and nowadays, I don't even really watch television or live TV, or it's all on-demand streaming services and stuff like that. That's all I have.
8 years or so since we even had it. We just watch whatever.
Yeah, streaming services and YouTube. That's all I watch.
Yeah.
So if you had a TV, I'm like, I wouldn't ever. The idea of clicking a channel, I'm like, what? Anyways, I digress. So Elaine kind of just teases that it's her birthday coming up next week, and then Jerry mentions that he's having like a root canal or something like that going, or was it like some dental surgery? Wasn't it? So it was just kind of like, it was just some quick, root canal. Okay, it was just some banter back and forth to move the plot along, and then the birthday thing just kind of put it out there. It's something like seems like this is a tidbit that will come in handy later for the plot.
Yeah.
Just remember this one.
Elaine's birthday's coming up.
It's like like the RPG. I'm like, this will come in handy later.
Yeah.
Put it in your bag.
And then once you empty it out of your inventory because you don't have any room left, and then you need it like 10 minutes later. You're like, well, fuck, I wish I had that still.
Yeah. But so they go back, back to the flipping of the channels and stuff like that. And then she lands on did they call it the Naked People channel or something? Yeah. Or she just says, naked channel. The Naked channel.
Now, was that porn or was it
a movie channel? That's what I was wondering. But we
used to have Blue Nui, and it was on the Showcase channel. After like 1 o'clock at night, it was called Blue Nui, and
I don't know what that is.
It's what you watch when you're 15 years old at 1 o'clock in the morning.
You're like, it was always like Comedy Central. Once they switched the commercials to like the Girls Gone Wild, you're like, oh man, if I had a credit card, I'd buy that. I was like 10.
Buy the VHS.
Yeah. What a stupid thing. But yeah, so it was like the nudie channel. I wonder if that's like actually a porn thing that came with his subscription, or if it's the movie channel. And then just like, is that something Jerry would buy? Like, might as well just buy the porn channel.
Yeah, add that on there, right?
Yeah, it was just another like little just like detail. I'm like, why does he even have that? Yeah, because you have to purchase that. Anyway.
Especially in the middle of the day. It wasn't even a nighttime thing. It was like it was the actual channel for that reason.
Yeah, it was like the whole the Naked channel.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it gets on there, and then Jerry's uncomfortable, and then Elaine teases him. He's like, "Oh, what? It's been a while." Kind of like, and then Jerry kind of is having fun with it and teasing back. He's like, oh, I remember doing something with someone, implying that he's had sex and then not, recently. And then, Elaine kind of says that it's been a while for her.
My hair was much shorter.
Much shorter, yeah. So the camera work, if you looked at it, super zoomed in because it was a really wide shot of them, and then it kind of get closer to them talking, and then at this point it got really close to Jerry's face, and he's definitely gives Elaine that look like, hey,
yeah, give her the eyes,
and it's and it was I mean, probably good acting for Jerry at least. It was him, he really did the I don't know. Saying something without saying, or saying something with his face.
Yeah.
And then
one of those rare moments where he actually acted well.
Yeah. Everybody always has that comment that Jerry's like the worst actor in Seinfeld, which is probably true, but it's still, it's funny,
He's the only one that wasn't an actor to start with, right? So
100%, yeah. So, Elaine notices, picks up on it, and they have like a flirty back and forth about that look. Yeah. And then, Jerry kind of, mentions of how you can't just forget about the relationship that they had and that they had sex, which is a thing too. It's like a plot point. I'm like, why did they write that into the show? I mentioned it before. Why couldn't Elaine just been Jerry's a friend of theirs? It's like, no, this person Jerry has to have had sex with.
And that was, because I looked into that, and it was an NBC thing. So Larry David did not want Jerry and Elaine to be a relationship.
Yeah.
But NBC kept pushing it. Said, you need a love interest. You need a love interest. And they kept pushing this Elaine Jerry thing, and they didn't want to do it. So it was written in early to have, there was a relationship, but there's not now. Kind of try to make NBC happy.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But then they kept pushing this agenda to have that be a thing. Yeah.
Okay. I always just assumed it was just something that's like, we can't have a woman without.
Yeah, NBC. That's what NBC thought. Like, you need
her fucking one of the guys. It's like, no, you can be friends with a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite possible.
Yeah.
Anyways, so they're kind of going back and forth, like the flirting kind of awkward thing, which it's great dynamic of like you said, this dialogue back and forth. It's like showing how they're flirty and having fun, but they're still like, it's awkward, their relationship, because when they put it out there, it's like, oh yeah, we used to date, but we're still friends.
Yeah.
Anyways, they're talking about how, in the bedroom, there's no surprises. They know what they've been doing in there. It's just casually talking about, it's like, oh yeah, they know the roads.
Yeah.
Like between the two of them, they've had sex, 37 times or 27 or something like that?
Yeah, I remember it was a number. It was like they kept track.
Like 35 or something like that. And then they're kind of both convincing themselves, or, convincing each other, but more themselves, that a friends with benefits relationship is perfectly a fine idea.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. It'd be stupid if they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And maybe because it's like the network TV, but like I was saying, it's like the friendship dynamic is really there, that they're kind of, neither one of them are, blatantly saying like, hey, let's just go have sex right now.
Yeah.
Or like nobody's making a move. It's kind of like them kind of, the reasoning with themselves and each other. If you think about it, if you did it, and I think
Jerry suggested 25 times, and Elaine said 37. So Jerry was guessing. Elaine kept track.
Gotcha. But they do mention, like right up front, that if they did that, it could hurt the friendship. And it's like, we don't want to lose this.
Yeah.
By adding that, implying, having sex or whatever.
And they did a great job of that, of doing that without saying sex the whole time. Like, it could still air at 7:00 on Thursday night. It was going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I couldn't tell if it was the censorship of TV but it really did play into their dynamic with each other, and even like all four of them.
Yeah,
they're not really so lewd. But a little note here. I'm like, I've never had a friends with benefit relationship because I think I'm too fragile of a boy. I couldn't handle that in my life. I can already say that I would never be able to handle something like that at all. Ever. I'm like, nope. And I've never tried, never been put up to it. And I'm like, yep, I can safely say I could not do that.
No, neither could I.
I think I could, like, I wrote that note. I'm like, yeah, no, I could never even just kid myself. I'm like, yeah, I could probably do that. I'm like, no, I couldn't. I already know. I think I've started seeing an ex after we broke up. like quickly, like I'm like, it turned into dating again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked about like, it's like, oh, you usually just cut it off. But I was like, oh, maybe we can still be friends and hang out. And then we ended up, dating again. And we broke up really quickly within like a week. Because you realize I'm like, oh yeah, we broke up because I hate you.
Yeah.
Not I hate
for
you, but
a reason.
I just I don't want to be around you.
I don't hate you. I just despise you.
But it's not like hey, let's be friends and have sex. It's like, oh, hey, let's just start dating again.
Yeah.
And doing all the things that came with dating. And I was just like, yeah, no, this anyways, and then you've talked about it, but I've never really even remained friends with exes.
Yeah.
That's why this is so weird. I'm like, I don't know. Like you kind of, like not even on social media. I don't even follow, like we're not even friends with them.
Unfriended.
Or sometimes I think I've dated a lot of people who don't have social media.
Yeah.
Which is, for sure, if I didn't have a band or a podcast, I don't think I'd have Facebook for sure. I definitely keep my Facebook just for like podcasts and groups. Like any of my actual people.
Groups. Yeah.
Yeah, actual people that I know. I'm like, no, I usually like block them from my wall. I'm like, or feed or whatever. I'm like, I don't care what you're doing. Get out of here. I want to go see what's.
I want to know you in real life.
I want to go to like my guitar groups or podcast groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go see what's going on in Matt and Shane. Even though I listen to the podcast already. See if they have any funny memes. Let's see. Or it's like I think only like one exception. It's like an ex from like years ago, like over a decade or even longer maybe. Added me on Instagram. So I'm like, okay, I'll follow her back. And then it's like, oh, she's doing well. Kids, marriage, all that stuff. All the shit that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Worked out for her. She's got that going. But it's not like even we're commenting or messaging. It's just kind of like, all right, we're following. All right. It's like we knew each other, so I guess we could follow each other. That's it. So that's why the whole like them being friends, it was like, I don't think that is real. This is where it's like actually fake.
Yeah. Fake.
I'm like, anyways, back to the show. So they decide that they're going to do it. They're going to add that to this.
Yeah.
But they need to lay down some ground rules. And this is what them talking about it. It's like, okay, they're so casual about this, but it's like, okay, well, that can work, but let's do a couple things. And they agree. I'm like, that makes sense. If if we didn't do that, it's so smart to put down rules.
And this is something that Larry David actually did. He actually tried to do this with a girl and make a set. He said it didn't work, but he, the idea came from him actually trying to do this.
So they're going, talking it out, but they came up with the three rules, which is no calls the day after having sex.
Yep.
Sleeping over is optional.
Yep.
And then no kisses goodnight.
Yeah.
What did you say? It's bourgeois? Is
bourgeois.
What is Elaine says. And I'm like, I had to look that up. And I guess they used it correctly, but I'm just going to start using it now more and to sound smart, like to reference a couple episodes ago when I find out new words.
Yeah.
So it says, of or a characteristic of the middle class, typically with reference to its perceived materialistic values or conventional attitudes.
Well, that's probably where the word bougie came from. Bourgeois, and now we say bougie.
Yep. So.
And in the peel back the curtain here, before the episode, there's a website I find the scripts from, and I put it on here.
Mm-hmm.
And in that script, it says, it's Brugwa with a question mark in brackets beside it. So the person that transcribed this copy of the script for this website didn't know what it meant either.
Yeah, so Bourgeois. That's bourgeois.
Yeah, and they put BRUG-WA question mark.
Bourgeois.
Brugwa.
Brugwa. What the fuck? Anyways, so Jerry initiates. He's like, "With you ready?"
Yeah, we got the rules. Let's go and get her on.
Yeah, and it's just the way you went away with words. Yes, but it definitely highlights the awkwardness. So it's like, okay, so ready to go, champ? Kind of thing. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. And then Elaine, she's like smiling, and kind of bumps into the bookcase.
Yeah,
And then
giggly
again,
kind of. Yeah.
highlighting the awkwardness, It's the next scene in the morning, and Jerry is pouring 2 glasses of orange juice. Kramer comes in asking where's the paper.
But only a little bit of orange juice again. When they pour their orange juice, they only pour a mouthful in the glass. I don't get it. I notice every time. Ashley notices every time. It's a little tiny mouthful of orange juice.
Yeah. Which is like, as I think I probably said this before, but I'll say it again. I work in a retail store that sells like house goods and stuff like that. And there's like double glasses, highball glasses, and juice glasses. Juice glasses are 8 ounces or sometimes 6 ounces. They're small. And then my co-host for Tone Jerks, he's like, what the like, because he used to work there too. He's like, what the fuck? Who's drinking that much juice? I'm like, well, serving size is 8 ounces. You shouldn't have more than that. He's like, no, I want fucking 24 ounces of orange
Kyle
juice.
just takes a straw and puts it to the side of the carton. He's like, oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, you're not supposed to drink that much orange juice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so they might be having, just a little bit below the serving size there.
Kyle's a growing boy, though.
Yeah.
He might need the extra vitamins.
Yeah. So anyways, but you're right. They just like a little splash of orange juice in a cup. So, Kramer's talking about the paper. Jerry hasn't gotten it yet. And Kramer just acts like annoyed. Like his whole day's fucked up.
He's like, you didn't go get a paper so I can steal it from you yet?
Yeah. His whole day's ruined because Jerry hasn't got the paper and he can't mooch off of Jerry at the moment. I like that little thing with Kramer's like, what? He hasn't gotten it yet.
That's what I made note here. Kramer can't just get his own paper.
When he has to steal Jerry's.
Yeah.
And then Elaine comes out, walking from the bedroom, wearing Jerry's t-shirt, and she's got frizzled hair. And then Kramer looks, and it takes him a second to put 2 and 2 together. Yeah. He leaves, and it's like, oh, okay. And he's smiling as he shuts the door.
Yeah.
I can't tell. It's either that he's like super stoked for his boy, like, just, hooked up, or he's stoked that, there's going to be drama coming.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both. That he's like, oh, this will be good.
He just walks away.
He walks like, oh, yeah. So scene ends, goes to Monk's.
Is this the first booth scene at Monk's? They're in the booth, and
they're at the booth.
Yeah, and I think up until now they're at like a table of 4, or they're over in the booth by the window. But I think this is the
behind
first
the
time
cashier.
they're at the booth. Yeah,
I think maybe the other one was the statue, but it wasn't like he was talking with Ray.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And George was staking out. So I think that's maybe the first time, but it wasn't like George and him.
Yeah.
It wasn't, normal Seinfeld kind of, placement. But it's just, anyway, so they're at the booth, so the Seinfeld booth. And then it's a random conversation between Jerry and George.
They're talking about Aquaman. If that was today, like back then, they said Aquaman, people were like, who's Aquaman? And like, it'd be something that would be niche for Jerry to know.
Yeah.
But today, with all the movies and everything, that everyone knows the big Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
And Amber Heard. I don't know if you heard about that, but her and Johnny Depp are having troubles. I don't know if you caught that. It was on a television program there the other day that they're in court with each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the YouTube video upload, on the tags, I'm going to tag Amber Heard and Johnny Depp since we mentioned it, and we can, and we'll see what happens to the viewership on our video there next week.
Just because we mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, we mentioned the Will Smith thing. We're on the cutting edge here.
Yeah.
Your Seinfeld podcast.
Come here for your news.
3 weeks later, 4 weeks later.
She pooped on his bed.
Did you hear about that, folks? And then everybody's like, what about Amber Turd? Anybody think about that one? Hello?
Yeah.
There it is. Anyways, their conversation about Aquaman just goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And then I'm just kind of that, like, they have these conversations all the time. It's like, yeah, I think you've seen him go on land. Anyways, okay, it just ends. And then kind of just Jerry asks him about the job. So he's like still job hunting, still looking. And then Jerry, he's like, oh, what about you? It's like he casually mentions that he slept with Elaine.
Yeah.
And this is the oxygen. I need oxygen. Like, that's a good George line. I feel like actually this episode's got like a lot of good George lines that stick out to me.
George overreacting to everything.
And he's like, he's ready. He's chomping at the bit. He's ready for the details. He's like, all right.
Yeah.
And then, Jerry doesn't want to talk about it. He felt like a humble brag.
Yeah.
He just did. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, I don't really want to, I can't give details. I'm not in the mood. Very kind of smug, like, nah, I'm not in the mood. And then George tees off on him. He's like, I don't have a job. I don't have a place to go. You're not in the mood. Well, you get in the mood. That's another great George line. And you can see that Jerry is cracking up. Like, they cut like the camera a couple times, and he's like smiling. He looks away. And he's like, and then when they have the shot of George from the back, you can see his teeth, and he's like already grinning. He's like, this is a great George moment.
This is gold. It's gold, Jerry.
Yeah. And then Jerry's, giving the details to George, and he leans in. Like, the way he leans in, like, he's, like, looking at, Jerry, like, he's got a secret. And he's like, all right. He's telling him a story. He's like, it's pretty good. Jerry goes on. And then George just starts shitting on him. He's like, these are bad details.
Yeah, they're awful.
Jerry's too old for details. He's grown out of it.
Yeah.
And then another line's like, any kind of growth really irritates me. It's a great George comment. And it kind of cement George's character this season for sure. It's great.
Yeah.
So, and, mentions how the sex was better before, or better than before they were, one more time, Brian. He mentions how the sex is better now than it was before when they were dating.
She must take some kind of seminar or something.
Yeah. That's pretty, Jesus. And then, then George asks if they're a couple again. And he kind of just explains that, no, they're friends with benefits.
Not exactly.
Yeah. Or, yeah, he doesn't, I don't think they ever say friends with benefits ever. But George laughs in his face. It's like, it's impossible. It's not going to work. And he explains, Jerry's like, no, we have ground rules. It's going to be it's foolproof kind of thing. George isn't convinced. And then the sleeping, what was it? What was the first one? It's like sleeping over is optional.
No calls the next day.
Ah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, that sounds good. He's like, okay, first one, good one.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
not even interested in the rest. He's like, that's a good rule.
He's like, I should do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next one is sleeping over optional. That's the one that George doesn't like. He's like, oh, that's gonna get you. You're being too greedy.
Yeah. He goes, you see, you got greedy.
Yeah. And the next scene goes, it's at Elaine's apartment. You can tell, obviously, they just had sex because Elaine's in a robe. Jerry's kind of buttoned up his shirt. And they have, like, just kind of some banter. Everything's, like, it's in good, everybody's in good spirits. There are the two of them, And then Jerry's kind of like, he's going to bounce. He's leaving. And obviously, Elaine's not liking that.
No.
Like, it's
cold
like,
shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's having surgery the next day. It's easier if he's at home. And then, Elaine's like, oh, okay. And she grabs like half a roll of, paper towels.
Just unrolling it and unrolling it. It was like, a perfect way to portray that she was pissed without like, splash on screen. Elaine is pissed. Just not really paying attention to what she's doing, just taking a whole roll of paper towel.
Yeah, it's like half a roll of paper towels. And then she actually takes them to the bedroom. What the fuck happened in there?
Mopping up with 30 sheets of paper towel.
Yeah. Jerry's really good, I guess. The move.
Yes,
not the knuckle.
Yeah.
Putty. No, not
spoiler alert.
Yeah. Anyways, so they're outwardly argumentative towards each other.
Yeah.
And Jerry's like, okay, why? What's going on? What about the rules? And Elaine says it's her place, and sleeping over is optional. Well, it's her place. It's her option. It's like they go. The gray area with the rules coming out here.
Yeah.
And like Elaine's roommate comes in, and she is established as a. Is this the first time she's in it?
It is.
Okay, so
and
she's like,
this is Ashley's eagle eye pick of the day. That's the wife of Edgar from Men in Black. Remember when the cockroach crashes and he puts Vincent, whatever his name on. Yeah, wears him like an Edgar suit. That's the wife. Yeah.
More sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar water.
More sugar.
Oh shit. Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't even think about it. I know she's in the series a little bit here and there. That's all.
I bet you Will Smith wished he had one of those little zapper things after he slapped Chris Rock there the other day, like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just point at the camera. Everyone forget about it.
But she'll be in episodes later, but she's established as like a weird, annoying character.
Yeah.
Which is kind of one of the reasons why Elaine has mentioned she hates her roommate, wants to move out.
Yeah.
Like, call back to earlier in the season when she wanted to get a new apartment. Anyways, so she's kind of just there saying something like, oh, my improv, blah, blah, blah. And then she, it's like, oh, we were talking kind of thing. So she kind of sees herself away from them. And then Jerry ends up leaving, even though Elaine's upset. And so he goes in for a goodnight kiss, and then that's when he gets rejected. But, because of the rules. Elaine's like, I don't know if that's a little bit of a tit for tat there, which is like, all right, you're not staying. You ain't getting a kiss. Get out of here.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I was like, what are you doing? It's a rule.
So it goes to a store. Next scene with George and Jerry. They're shopping for Elaine's birthday gift. It says, you can't buy jewelry because he's like, oh, it's a good birthday gift. It sends the wrong message.
Yeah.
So especially with how rocky the other night went. And George, he's like, oh, maybe I'll buy her jewelry because he's already like, oh, well, kind of already saw what he likes. And he's like, I'll give that to her.
Yeah.
And then Jerry's like, okay, you can't buy a better gift than me. You put me in an awkward position.
Half as much.
You got to spend half as much as I do. He's definitely overthinking this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then he had mentioned like, oh yeah, she wants a bench. And then she had mentioned she wanted a bench. And then George is like giving him like, shit for it. It's like, the idea's dumb. A bench idea? No. It's like, who has a bench in their house? Like at a bus stop? No. He's like, no. Yeah. He's like, okay, forget the bench. And so like trying to go different ideas, a music box, but that's too relationshipy. And it's a kind of a prop heavy joke here. I noticed it before he grabbed it. It's like there's a picture with a random man, a picture frame.
Yeah, I tried looking up to see if that was somebody but I guess it was just a random guy. There's no record of who it would have been.
So there's a prop heavy joke where he grabs that picture frame after puts down the music box. He's like, I hear about a really nice frame with another guy in it. Yeah. The fact that if you're selling a frame, why is there a picture of some man in it?
Yeah.
It's like, I care for you, but if you want to get serious, perhaps you'd be interested in somebody like this. George really crushing it with the one-liners on this episode.
Yeah.
I had to write that one down like that. But he suggests, points out a waffle maker, candle holder, lingerie, a bust of Nelson Rockefeller. What a random store.
Yeah.
It's got to be like a thrift store, but also if there's lingerie at a thrift store.
Yeah.
And then, that's why I was like, what the fuck is that? And I had to look up, admittedly, I didn't know who Nelson Rockefeller was. So he's the 41st Vice President of the United States and former governor of New York.
Yeah, and the Rockefeller Center would have been.
Mm-hmm. And I got to mention that there's a 4-part podcast, Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast with Louis C.K., where they actually go through the U.S. presidents and they kind of go from the beginning all the way to the end. It's pretty informative and really funny because obviously it's Shane Gillis and Matt McCusker, they're comedians, and Louis C.K., comedian, right?
Yeah.
I guess maybe some people don't like him, but he's.
I think he's uncanceled now. I don't know anymore.
I don't know. Yeah. So it's actually pretty informative, like I said, and because Louis C.K. and Shane Gillis are both like history fans,
okay,
especially U.S. history and stuff like that. So they did their research on it and kind of were going, from either movies they saw, reading up on them, and it's pretty cool. And it's actually, people are like, this is actually really insightful. This is the Louis C.K. guy.
Yeah, this is the guy. That guy.
And this is known racist Shane Gillis. Okay, they're actually pretty good at this. So I suggest go checking that out. So it's came out last week and week previous. So it's, I think, U.S. Presidents is what it's called.
Okay.
But anyway, so the whole gift giving thing too. I think we mentioned this back during Christmas. I'm like, I'm really bad at gift giving. So I'm right there with Jerry. I'm like, terrible. I usually just ask my sisters what they want. I'm like, can you give me a link? And I just buy it for them.
So I find for Mother's Day, I'm always like, what do I get my mom for Mother's Day? And then it always ends up being like a potted plant that she can hang off the deck. It's not this year though. She didn't see it yet, so I'm not going to say it in case I don't see her in the next couple of days.
Okay. Well, I got my mom. She likes these. I usually just buy my dad beer or whatever, and then my mom, she likes the I don't know if you have them up there, Cutwater. Pre-mixed drinks.
Okay.
They're alcoholic drinks. They make margaritas, and she likes the lime margaritas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I found them, and they're usually super popular. So some places will be super sold out. So I got a couple boxes of those.
You should be very happy.
which I'm like,
And drunk.
Usually, I don't know. To me, I'm like, that's the easiest way to go.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, because I was talking about it with my bandmates, and they're like, oh, flowers and candy. I'm like, yeah, or like a card and just margarita. That's what it's like. That's actually really good. That's a good idea. Or I'll just chip in like for the parents and stuff like that for Christmas. So like my sisters will buy something and I just give them money. I'm like, let me just Venmo you money because they already did all the shopping for me. I'm pretty bad about it. But anyway, so they kind of don't solidify that he got anything there. Mm-hmm. But it goes into a stand-up bit in the middle there about gift cards or cards, and then how cards are coming nowadays that blank because relationships are so complicated that card companies are just, we give up, you think of something. Yeah. We're staying out of this. Yeah. It's not worth your 75 cents for us to figure it out. Yeah. But it's the same thing with cards. I'm just like, happy birthday. I write happy B-day or
I find cards though, like the ones that are pre-written, they're not good anymore. They're just like, So I'd rather just write something myself.
Yeah. So let's see. It goes now to Jerry's apartment. He obviously got her something. Mm-hmm. He gave, she's opening the gift, and she's excited, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just the fact that you remembered and got me something is great." Yeah. Well, you've been reminding me the past 2 weeks or whatever. Yeah. And then he's like, "Oh, he grabs the card for her as she's opening the box, and then she pulls it out. It's like box the size, I don't know, like a cake box. It's about how big it is. And then she pulls out all the wrapping, tissue paper, and stuff like that. And
the box is big enough; it looked like it could have been the picture frame.
Yeah,
yeah.
But he opens it, and she pulls out a wad of cash. She's none too pleased with that.
No.
What are you, my uncle? She's like, that's $182. That's nothing to snip at or whatever.
Something I'd like to know. You probably know, since they're your hometown boys. Where did Blink 182 get their name from? Because I wonder if they saw this episode went 182.
That would be great. It's from the movie Turk 182.
Okay.
So they were originally called Blink, and they had, I think their first CD, Cheshire Cat, they were Blink. And then there was a techno or DJ or something like that in the UK. Something like that. There was a band in the UK or Europe, maybe, called Blink. And then they were like, okay, to not, have to deal with that later on, just change your name to something. I think.
Just add the numbers.
182. It's like, because I think Mark Hoppus liked the movie Turk 182. So he's like, what about Blink 182? People think of like, how many... Yeah, there were so many different ideas. And it's like, no, that's exactly it. And when you hear that, I'm like, that's boring.
Yeah. I wish it was from Seinfeld episode where it was $180.
Yeah, to me, I like that. I like that better.
The band Bush, they're called Bush in the UK and Bush in the United States. But in Canada, there was another band named Bush that was like a small band. And they were going to sue them, so they changed the name to Bush X in Canada. So it's just Bush with a little X at the end. And it sounded dumb.
So
people hated it, and people still hate it, and they ended up, it's Bush again now, but they ended up getting rights to the name or whatever eventually. But a small band, when they first started up, was just trying to make a buck off them. So
yeah. There's another band, pop punk band, Phoenix TX. So they're spelled FENIX, TX. Originally, they were called River Phoenix, spelt that way.
Oh.
And then when he died, they're like, yeah, you probably could get sued for that. Yeah, but I'm like, it's spelled differently. So they're like, fine, fuck it. So I think when they got signed to MCA, they're like, change the name. So, okay, Phoenix. I'm like, what should we change it to? TX, because they're from Texas.
That works.
So, and then everybody always says, nobody says Phoenix, Texas, because it always says Phoenix TX.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I think that's a great gift, by the way. $182.
I'd be happy with that if someone gave me that for my birthday.
I made that little note here. That's a good gift, by the way. If you're thinking of getting me something, $182 is not bad. It's pretty good.
We should have calculated the inflation.
Yeah.
And 182 American in Canada, that's like $5,000.
And then the fact that why $182? Why not $200 even? Why not? Yeah, it's pretty funny because you look at it, it's just a wad of cash and there's ones and shit in it.
Yeah.
So she reads the card because she's like, okay, this has got to be better than the fucking cash.
Yeah.
It says, to a wonderful girl, a great pal, and more.
And he's trying to make it. He's trying to make it so emotionally disconnected that he insulted it. And the value of $182 in 1991 would be $379 today.
That's pretty good. That's a good gift.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
But she's like even less impressed with that. So obviously Jerry's fucked up.
Yeah.
A great pal. Anyway, so Kramer comes in
and more.
And more.
Bite his finger off.
Exactly. But Kramer comes in to break the tension or maybe add to it. Probably more add to it, actually. So he brings in his gift, and she's excited. She opens it up, and it's the bench she wanted. An actual thoughtful gift.
Yeah, remember she mentioned it? I made a mental note.
Yeah, it's a good gift.
I'm very sensitive about that.
Kramer listened to her. He was thoughtful, sensitive about gift giving. It's like all the non-Kramer things.
Yeah.
It's like seems like he's a great friend, a great person when it's like fucks over somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, oh man, so Jerry, what'd you get her? And he mentions $182. Kramer laughs and it's like does the uncle bit thing again. What do you wear, uncle?
Yeah.
And then the card, he put William Butler Yeats poem in his card, and she loved it. It's like she was gonna cry. Yeah. So even thoughtful in what he wrote too.
And she said that they kind of had a rule when they started the show that there's gonna be no emotion, no hugging. It was just they were friends, but it wasn't supposed to be like emotional friendships.
Yeah.
But she said for this part, it was emotional for her because it's an emotional verse. So she went with it. And Jerry said he was just uncomfortable. He's like, I was very out of my element in this scene because there was actual emotion going on just because they felt the line.
Yeah, because Elaine and Kramer are actors and actresses.
Yeah.
They act. But it's great because Jerry is awkward and he's like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, kind of pushes, in a sense, asks Kramer to leave, but he like kind of pushes him out the door so they can continue they need to have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Jerry wants to go back to being friends. No benefits anymore, da-da-da. And then Elaine says she can't do that. She doesn't think she can go back to being just friends. So he's like, we can't have that, and this. So she mentions that she wants this, sleeping together, and the other. That, and the other. Which
and
I thought was a good...
Jerry kind of suggests from me, he goes, not just that?
Yeah. It's like, let's not even hang out or talk. Let's just have sex.
Yeah.
She wants to be in a dating relationship is what she's totally gets at by saying this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So then that scene ends and it goes to Monks again with, George and Jerry are talking about the birthdays and birthday gifts and how they're relationship killers,
Yeah.
George mentions how he can't see Elaine anymore because, that's the code. You can't be friends with, your friend's exes.
Yeah.
And so he can't see Elaine because she's pissed off at her, at him because of her gift. He's like, well, what'd you get her? $91. Exactly half of what Jerry's gift was. And I love that callback. He's like, well, what'd you get her? $91. What do you mean, what did I get her? I got her half of, which is cool because George is a ride or die friend kind of in these moments. Like, one, he's not going to see Elaine because, he's friends with Jerry. And then he said get half, so I got exactly half.
Yeah.
$91. So he says he has to, call her back and, they're going to date again. Like she's it, And then they kind of had this weird thing that, at least to me, it felt weird. They had this like weird future scenario of like running into her, in 5 years in the future, and she's married to a sculptor or whatever, living in Vermont.
I feel like they must have been referencing a movie that we're not aware of or something. Like it seems like that was a lot of details.
Details that for a joke that kind of had a couple but I'm like, they've never talked like that before.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder who wrote that.
It felt different.
It's like, it's just, then, she's living in Vermont with her new husband, sculptor guy. He's like, then we'd have to kill the guy. Jerry would get the chair, and then George is in jail for, being an accomplice or whatever. And you know what happens in jail. That's what ends that whole thing. I'm like, what? That's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, to me, I thought, and like, I guess it caught you too. It's like not very Seinfeld moment, and it's like end it with like a prison butt rape joke.
Yeah,
that they've never had before either.
Yeah, that was just kind of awkward. It's like, is this a thing? Like,
yeah.
Like, no, it's
probably
not
like,
a thing, Jerry.
Yeah, let's pad the show here.
Yeah.
But anyways, it goes to ends that scene. George's like, you gotta go call her. Blah blah blah. I ain't going to prison.
Yeah.
Anyways, goes back to Jerry's apartment in the morning, or in a morning, and then Kramer walks in. He wants the paper, and Elaine's got it, and so it's like they kind of do some cutesy couple banter back and forth, and then Kramer leaves and mentions, "I liked you better when you weren't a couple." Scene, music plays, it fades.
Yeah.
And then that totally could have been the end of the series. Like you said, this could have been in episode 12.
Yeah.
That makes so much more sense because episode 10, they never referenced them being a couple.
Yeah, this was supposed to be like a do Elaine and Jerry stay together? Find out next season kind of thing. Or
if we get picked up, or if like it doesn't get picked up, it's done. So here's your little.
Yeah, so when Kramer made that comment, I liked it better when you weren't a couple. That was a reference to the fact that NBC wanted this to happen the whole time. So they're like, you know what? We're getting canceled anyway. We'll throw it in there, make them a couple. NBC will be happy. We'll have Kramer make comment how it's not good. But apparently over that, the hiatus between season 2 and season 3, Jerry is doing a stand-up tour, and he'd ask the audience, what do you think? Should Elaine and Jerry stay together? And they're all like, nope.
Yeah.
And then he brought it back to Larry Davis like, no, everyone that I talk to says absolutely not. Don't be a couple. So then they just never picked it up again. But then, like we said, when they aired it on TV, they put it in the order that NBC wanted it, and it just didn't make sense. So.
Yeah, totally. And then I have to see how season 3 starts, if they even mention it.
Yeah, I don't think they ever bring it up again.
Because I watched the next episode, and it's not even touched upon.
Yeah.
That they're dating. What a dumb move.
Yeah.
What a stupid move.
That's when you put money into making decisions, and that's what they were doing, right? Just NBC was like, we'll get better ratings if we do this. And then...
Yeah.
And like, now
it makes it, if it was at the end, that makes so much more sense. When you said that, I'm like, aha moment. I'm like, that's so smart. That's fucking whatever.
It's like, who shot Mr. Burns? And then when it comes back on after the summer, it's like, oh, the baby did. Like,
fucking baby. You're like,
that was a summer of everywhere you looked. It was who shot Mr. Burns. I don't know how old you were then, but
no, I remember. Yeah,
it was
that.
Like everywhere you went, it was like, who shot Mr. Burns? It was the whole thing, and at the end, it was like, yeah, the gun fell, and Maggie accidentally shot him.
It's like how they do reference it in the show. It's like, yeah, it's like, didn't he shoot Mr. Burns? No, it was Maggie. But that would have made a lot more sense. Lisa. It's like, yeah, no, he shot Mr. Burns. No, that was Maggie. Oh, and she's like, no, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I do remember, I don't know if you were a South Park watcher.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, so early on, it was like, who's Cartman's father?
Yes.
And so it's like, of the whole town, because everybody had sex with his mom, and you just don't know who's Cartman's actual dad.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be the next episode. Kind of leaves it on a cliffhanger. And then they actually didn't have that. They played like a full-on episode of Terrence and Phillip.
Oh, really?
And then the season ended.
Oh,
because
really?
they thought that would be hilarious not to even have that. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, we're not even going to continue this plot point. It's like
that was the bit. They just
the bit was that I don't think they ever had it going anywhere, because they're like, oh, this episode is postponed for an episode of Terrence and Phillip, and then like I remember Comedy Central like saying, okay, South Park's coming back for a new season. You'll actually get to, they're teasing this, like, you'll actually get to know what the answer is for this. And it was like them playing, like, it could have totally been fake, but it's like people calling in or writing to Comedy Central. It's like, what the fuck is this?
That's
It's
funny.
like, you played an episode of fucking Terrence and Phillip. Fuck you, Comedy Central. Fuck you, South
Those
Park.
flappy-headed Canadians.
Yeah. But anyway, so it ends with a stand-up bit about men and commitment. So compares it to like being on a freeway of life.
Mm-hmm.
Women, they want to take an exit that has food, lodging, gas, all the accommodations that you need, and then men are just focused on the next town, next city.
Yeah.
I got 47 miles to go. I can make it. And I'm like, yeah. So I don't have much to a comment on that one. I'm like, yep, and it ends.
Yeah. Just wraps up, and it seems like they just kind of tag that on the end, like it didn't belong there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm seeing it in a whole new light just right now. I'm like, you blew my mind with the whole, this was the season finale. I'm like, that makes so much, that's so much better writing.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes more sense, but it's not episode 9 out of 12.
I gotta, yeah, I could just jump and watch it. But yeah, see if season 3, if they even mention it.
Yeah. I don't think they do, but we'll find out.
Well, we'll get there.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I think that's it. It was a good episode. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
They said it definitely, establishing the characters really well this season. It was like George is definitely George. Kramer is Kramer. Elaine's Elaine. Jerry's always been Jerry.
Yeah. Everyone's ironed out, though. It's good.
Mm-hmm. All right. Cool. Yeah. So thanks for listening to the Second Button podcast. We'll see you in a couple weeks. But if you want to follow along on the show, we have social media, all linked in the description. So we have an Instagram, a Twitter, and a YouTube channel.
Yep.
So you can watch the podcast if you're so inclined. Give us a sub, give us a follow, and we'll see you next time.
See you then. Bye now.
Bye.